Well, everyone, it's just finished. It's just finished. 3-0 Leicester City versus West Brom. We've just won. And what are your initial thoughts on the game?
That went a lot better than I was expecting. I'm going to be honest. I thought West Brom were going to be harder opponents than that, and we 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 got through relatively easily and unthreatened, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think just on the kind of West Brom front, I don't think they're quite ready for what the Premier League is going to deliver them because they were quite poor this game. It almost felt like a pre-season game.
It did, but at the same time, I don't know if that's because it's behind closed doors. It felt sort of like a friendly because a lot of the games at the end of last season did anyway. But they just they haven't really signed anyone. They all they've done is make their loans permanent, but got them up. They haven't added to the squad massively, so I think they may struggle slightly this year.
Maybe we'll have to see about that. But just going forward on this, I think just going forward, what are your initial thoughts on the game? Because there's been a few brilliant performances, but which again, as you were saying earlier, we weren't expecting.
I think first half, I was saying in my vlog, but we're gonna rue missing so many chances in the first half because we saw it time and time again last season where we created no end of chances, and then straight into the second half we concede 1-0 down, and then 1-0 down. We never looked like we're going to come back into the game, but Castagne got the header, and once we went 1-0 up, I don't think we really looked in any danger of conceding.
Yeah, because that was one issue that I think that we had earlier on is in the season where we went 1-0 up and we'd lose that lead quite quickly or that momentum would just shift. But for some reason, when we had that momentum with us, we just carried through. Obviously, having two penalties helped at the same time. But I think overall, having that possession and having the two penalties helped just massively with the scoreline.
Yeah, and I don't think I know Vardy got the 2 goals from a penalty, but I don't think it was his best game. Sorry, if you take away the penalties, because he didn't really have too much of an impact, didn't have that many chances and stuff. But he did get the 2 goals, obviously from the penalties, which hopefully again that can build some confidence for him and build some confidence throughout the squad, and we can sort of kick on from that. Because I think next week against Burnley will be a much harder challenge than what today was against West Brom.
I totally agree. I think it will be a very different game. And Burnley, we know how they're going to set up. But just overall, we dominated possession in the first half, and we didn't really look that comfortable, look like we were going to go anywhere with it. I don't know if you thought that this was going to be like kind of carrying on from last season.
I'm going to be honest, I got quite frustrated with Barnes in the first half because he had 2 or 3 chances where he should be hitting the back of the net with at least one of them. And it's what we were saying in the podcast the other day. He's brilliant at getting into the positions to score goals. It's just that clinical edge that he's lacking at the moment. And you'd hope sort of over the next year or so that's something he can develop and work on within training and then carry on into his games.
I'm hoping so. So if you were Harvey, but I know he had some good performances, but a lot of them seemed to be straight at the keeper today, didn't they?
Yeah, many had that volley. I know it was a difficult technique and stuff, but he's got to at least test the keeper with that volley on the rebound.
Yeah, for me, the one that was the most standout moment was the second opportunity. So about 2 minutes after that, when he opened himself up, made the space, and then he hit it straight at the keeper again. I'm thinking the first opportunity you were saying you had the opportunity to go and score another goal, but I think this season will be the season, hopefully, that he'll make problems like that and he'll actually fix them. Oh, I don't know what you think. Is this going to be the season that Harvey Barnes properly kicks on and becomes that 10-goal winger that we need?
Potentially, but he's also got the thing that he's got last season where if he doesn't play particularly well, he's got no one to come in and really give him a kick up the backside. So however badly he does play, not saying he had a bad game today, but sort of if he does drop a stinker after a stinker, he'll still be the player that starts, which I don't think is really a good thing. And I know we can't compare ourselves to the Man Cities and the Liverpools of this world, but when you look at them and their players that are reaching the top level, that's because they've got players just behind them pushing. So, for example, at Man City, they've got Mahrez, who's pushing Bernardo Silva and Sterling and stuff. That's 3 world-class players pushing each other. And as I say, I don't expect us to be pushing at that level, but you want someone behind them to be able to say that if you don't play, for example, David Brooks is going to come in and David Brooks is going to be hungry to prove why he should be starting week in, week out. At the moment, what we've got is Albrighton, who's his best days are behind him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one thing I actually noticed as well. So just coming on to that, There was no Gray on the bench. There was only Albrighton that was actually available in order to come on in that winger position. So is that something that we worry about, or do you think he's had the same mentality as last year, where he's dropped Gray to kind of work on some stuff, and he's going to bring him back into the squad later?
I don't know, but it's an interesting one with Demarai Gray because this is the last season on his contract. You'd think he would really have his head down, trying to prove a point, trying to establish himself in the first team. And I hope that he does, because if not, I think he'll be off in the summer, and I can't see sort of a bigger club than Leicester picking him up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we'll move on to the more positives now. So, initial thoughts, Castagne, with our first performance. He's only joined us just over a week ago now. What are your initial thoughts on him and the whole performance of his in general?
I thought he was brilliant. He wasn't particularly tested defensively, so we'll see sort of more of that side of him in the games coming up. But going forward, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He started at right back. I was expecting him to start at left back and JJ start on the other side, but he looked very comfortable. It'll be interesting to see when Ricardo comes back, if he moves to left back or JJ keeps his place. But based on that performance, I think James Justin's going to have to go back to the bench.
Yeah, I do think so. And for his goal, do you think he took it really well? And I think his crossing's pretty good as well.
He climbed really well for that header. Like,
Yeah.
he was properly committed to it, which is something that we criticised Chilwell for. Is he never seemed 100% committed to balls like that. So it's good to see that right from the off.
I definitely agree. I think there's something that we needed to touch on a little bit was I didn't realise is how small he was. And I know in the Premier League you kind of need to be a bit taller and a bit more physical. He just didn't have the. I think he might be even smaller than Jamie Vardy.
He's 6 foot, but just a bit. He's actually 6 foot, which surprises me. But he's skinny.
Ah. I don't know. Maybe it was my perception. He did look a bit smaller, but I thought he
But
had a good game, and he seemed to have that chemistry with Dennis Pratt, especially and Yuri Tillemans from the Belgian squad.
yeah, it's good to see, and I think he would just keep developing and developing, which I think that's what we want. We want players that want to be here, proving themselves and stuff. Chilwell, we knew that he wanted to go, which is why I wasn't massively concerned he did. So I think that getting Castagne in was a brilliant signing.
Yeah, and I think he had a brilliant game today, to be honest. He couldn't have done too much more. And do you know what? I'm quite lucky. We're quite lucky that we played a poor West Brom team first game of the season because we really need to pick up the momentum from the last season and missing out on Champions League.
Yeah, and as you say, we were lucky because we had to play Ndidi at centre-back, who I thought had a brilliant game, but you don't want to take him away from the midfield ideally because he's so good in that position. So, yeah, as you say, we were fortunate that we had West Brom, no disrespect to them, rather than Wolves and Everton, Tottenham, Man City type of team.
Yeah, and I think so obviously, as you were saying, Ndidi went centre-back, did pretty well. Another player that came in is Mendy, so he's not had too many games towards the end of the season, but now with Ndidi dropping back, I'm surprised they didn't play Chowdhury, but how do you think Mendy did as well?
It'll be interesting. He'll get more game time because of Europa League than he would have if we weren't in it. And I think that's why he's probably got the extension.
Yeah, and I think he had a decent enough performance today, but overall, I think we are missing. I think in the bigger games, when it comes to the Man Uniteds, the Man Cities, and Didi is going to probably fill that position when other people come through. But I think Soyuncu looked pretty good, and for the offside goal as well, just after 1-0, is that something that I don't know if you saw it as well. Did it come off Jamie Vardy or did it come off the West Brom defender?
Initially, I thought it came off Perez, but it came off Vardy, which is why it was offside.
Okay. That's from what I saw. That was not too bad, but I think overall we're happy with the performance. At the beginning it wasn't too good, but if they can take this momentum into the next game, I think hopefully it'll be good. I think overall we think this is the performance we needed and the result that we needed, right?
Yeah, and I hope we can now kick on from it because it's all good. It's all good getting this result against a newly promoted team and stuff. But if we don't carry the momentum forward, then it'll be disappointing.
Yeah, and I think as well, one thing as well, we had Maddison come on, and I think even in the 15 odd minutes that he was playing, I think he made a right difference as well.
Yeah, it's one of those, gets 15 minutes in his legs and stuff. I think we'll see more and more of him next game against Burnley. He'll have probably a 45 minutes, and then we'll be fit and ready for the Man City game, which will be a really difficult game.
I think so too. I think it'll be a more difficult game, but we'll get onto that. We'll get onto that in the next week's podcast a little bit more as well. But overall, what do you think on the man of the match? Who would you give man of the match to this game?
It's strange because you'd think I'd say Vardy scoring 2 goals, but he didn't really have that much of an impact on the game because his 2 goals were penalties and obviously goals a goal. But I'm going to go Castagne to come in on his debut, not played any of pre-season, and to play like that. I think that's absolutely outstanding, and it's exciting to see what's to come from him.
Totally. I completely agree. I've got Castagne down for my man of the match, even though Jamie Vardy scored 2 penalties as well. I think one thing we really got to look forward to as well is building that. He seems, with the midfield too, of Pratt and Tielemans of playing those roles, he knows how they play, he knows how they work. So it was a bit of an issue, I think, coming into the season. I didn't know if he'd go straight into the first team, but he doesn't look out of place at all. It will be a better test, obviously, when we have a stronger side. But I think it was a good performance overall. But I think this performance has been okay. This performance has been great, but is this really pointed out how we need to strengthen in this window? Because I don't want to say too many negatives about this performance, because it was a decent performance with 3-0 win. We should be happy, but there's definite holes that we need in this team.
Yeah, it's a decent performance, but don't let it paper over the cracks that we've got a paper-thin squad and that we need a centre-back and a winger. But I think if we don't get a centre-back and a winger, we are going to struggle massively throughout this season.
Yeah, and there's obviously with Morgan out, with Chilwell gone, with still not really replace Mahrez as well. We do need that player that will come in and the squad strength and depth.
We haven't replaced Mahrez in 2 years.
Yeah, we haven't, but we need to. I think, but I don't know if it'll be this season. I think one thing that we potentially need to do as well is look at centre backs, because there was no other centre backs on the bench, which I was really surprised at.
Well, there's no other centre-backs on the bench, but then we only had one centre-back actually starting. Ndidi's not a centre-back. That shows how thin our squad is. And then there's talk of loaning out Benkovic, which, yes, he hasn't been reliable, but the fact that we don't have anyone, we shouldn't be looking to loan someone out who could be a rotation player.
Yeah, I think he was injured for this match, but even then, you would have thought they would stuck Darnell Johnson or Josh Knight on the bench just
in case.
Just because you need somebody. Because at the moment in time, you're playing, as you were saying, a CDM and a centre back, and if there was an injury, or at sometimes if there was going to be somebody sent off, I mean, what would have happened? I think they'd probably drop Mendy and play Chowdhury as CDM, but. I don't want to take too many disadvantages, but I think what you were saying, we do need to improve from here squad-wise. But I think overall, in what ways do you think we need to improve the game from here?
I just think it's that clinical edge that we need to improve on in the first half, because we could have had the game done at half time, really 2-0 up, and then really cruising into the second half. Yes, we got the 3-0 win. Don't want to be too negative. There's lots of positives to take, but it is still that we are not being clinical enough in front of goal.
Definitely, I definitely agree there. But overall, what are your thoughts, guys? Leave it in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to Beyond the 90 and Ant's channel as well, and we'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.